Voter fraud, the key word of today's times. If I were on Wheel of Fortune, I would actually guess voter fraud every single time instead of even saying a letter, just because it's that high of a chance that it'd be one of the words on there. But there are so many things going on right now. I wanted to talk about the 14th Amendment, Equal Protection Clause, everything like that, so that people have a deeper understanding of the things going on in the election currently. So firstly, we have, this is something by Politico, one of the dumpster trash can fires of the world, pretty much just your trash can next to your toilet where you throw like your shit paper into and whatnot. But they say here, worried about a rigged election. Here's one way to handle it. And this is from 2016. I just love it when it comes back and bites these dumbasses right in the cheeks. They make these articles claiming one thing, and then now that Trump's in office, it completely flipped. Granted, he was in office at this time. But it says, Donald Trump's repeated accusations that the 2016 presidential election is rigged have already changed the course of this election. Not because they're valid charges. There's no evidence to support Trump's claims, and no serious experts believe that the current election is rigged. Serious experts. I love that they are serious experts if they don't believe the claims. Granted, this is 2016. Remember, this is just some pretense. But it throws a huge wrench into the process of anointing and accepting the new president, especially for the GOP, which will need to navigate a likely loss with a candidate who may very well refuse to acknowledge the result. Again, I love it, man. The same old story. It's a timeless tale. This shit's pretty much Moby Dick with Donald Trump now. Every time it's just the projection of the media. Everything that they do, they throw it onto this guy. And that's what I think people like about him, because he just brushes it off. Trump's pretty much the Giga Chad of the world. And no one can convince me differently. He is the Giga Chad. So I'm going to skip this next part. It's nearly impossible to predict the behavior of Trump. Yeah, all right, buddy. Okay, it's how Nixon handled the last American election that just might have been rigged for real. That election might have been rigged. But since then, we've incorporated all of these new mechanisms and safeguards. Oh, what? The computer's malfunctioning? Technology, whoa! It happened in 1960 after John Kennedy defeated Nixon by the narrowest of margins. Nixon believed that Kennedy's allies had stolen the election through systematic fraud. He had far more evidence in his court than Donald Trump. Dun, 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 dun. It's seriously a sitcom with these guys, I swear. It's so funny. Now you bring out the affidavits from this year's election, 2020. Just slaps this reporter in the face. He's like, where am I at? These people have no idea, man. Nixon believed that Kennedy's allies had stolen the election through systematic fraud, something similar to today's time. He had far more evidence in his court than Donald Trump, and his margin of loss was much smaller than Trump's current deficit in the polls. He didn't concede right away and gave serious consideration to fighting the polls, but ultimately Nixon accepted them, and so did the Republican Party, as well as the American Republic. Okay, so funny how this guy's not accusing Nixon of sitting there like they do Trump, as if Trump's just sitting there in the White House with his gun over his shoulder, posted up, smoking a cigar like it's a stakeout mission. He's sitting there waiting for someone to come in the doorway just to blow him away. He's going through the actual process, the legal process, to be elected, and they're accusing him of like some stakeout, some coup. Things have changed a fair amount since 1960. For one, people don't trust government as much as they once did. And nor do they do the media. In a recent poll, 79% of Republicans agreed that widespread voter fraud might result in a stolen election. Dun, dun, I'm telling you, a sitcom. But how the story of 1960 played out itself should influence the way that today's Republican Party conducts itself in the 2 weeks remaining before and the days after the election. If it doesn't, the very foundations of American democracy could find themselves on shaky ground. Kind of funny. So Trump was saying prior 2016 election, he was saying, there's some weird inconsistencies with these polls. It might be fraud. I don't know what is going on with this. Nope, polls were just entirely wrong. That's what it was. That was the actual problem, that we should have thrown the polls into the trash. I've actually eliminated all of these news sites from my mind. I no longer have the mental capacity for them. But the even better part, this is literally some Larry David Dun 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 dun, because Trump came through, blasted through that bitch, actually won, and this guy was already accusing Trump of not wanting to accept the results last time. So that's that one. That's their grand statement about a rigged election. So now quickly from this article, I wanted to read about the things happening in Pennsylvania currently. This also has to do with the mail-in ballot type of impropriety, I guess people are seeing. We'll keep that word thrown around here now. I guess voting impropriety is a huge one now. I'm just going to read this second paragraph here. The dispute now, back before the Supreme Court, began when the Pennsylvania Democratic Party filed a lawsuit that challenged parts of the state's absentee ballot system in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ooh, the COVID-19 pandemic. I love how they're so scared of it, but then you have some, what's her name? Oh, Nancy Pelosi, duh. Nancy Pelosi. Oh, things are so scary out here. Actually, she was saying, come on down to Chinatown right at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then after Trump already closed everything down, she'd already called him the xenophobe, you know. Just had to throw that one out there. She's caught getting her hair blow dried without a mask on, illegally at a place. And then she blamed the person who owned the facility. It was their fault, not mine. What? I'm supposed to follow my own mandates? Are you crazy? COVID-19. Ooh. Relying on a provision in the state's constitution, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court extended the deadline for mail-in ballots until November 6. Ballots that are clearly postmarked after the election day would not be counted under the Pennsylvania court's ruling. Ballots postmarked on or before election day and ballots with no postmark or an unclear postmark would be counted if received by the new deadline. That kind of sounds like they would be extending the time frame, because if you don't have to have a postmark on it or an unclear one and it would still be counted, it's kind of like, what's the point of the date anyways if you could still receive it afterwards? It's almost like they could have an influx of Democratic votes come in afterwards, and it would affect, like, after they see how many people voted for Trump, they would magically find these new ballots from the back door that would give them the advantage. Kind of weird. I don't know why they'd want to extend the deadline. COVID obviously has a deadline too. Makes things wild. So that's the point with this one. That's a big deficit, I believe, in the Pennsylvania cases going on right now, which leads us to the Equal Protection Clause. This is this is just on Wikipedia. I guess this is just a brief description of it, but the Equal Voting Clause, or the Equal Protection Clause, essentially states, actually this one was better. Yeah. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the previous or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Although, of course, the denial of the franchise on the basis of race or color violates the 15th Amendment and a series of implementing statutes enacted by Congress, the administration of election statutes so as to treat white and black voters or candidates differently can constitute a denial of equal protection as well. Additionally, cases of gerrymandering or electoral districts and the creation of maintenance of electoral practices that dilute and weaken black and other minority voting strength is subject to the 14th and 15th Amendment and statutory attack. Essentially the same thing, not necessarily the most damning thing. I don't think that was, this is a summary, this isn't worded accurately, but you can see that any voting practice that dilutes the ability for one side to have as much of a say as the other one, which is a big problem in what's going on right now with these mail-in ballots, giving anyone, I mean, I don't understand the concept of, like, don't get me wrong, I think everyone should be able to vote, but I also think that you should know what you're voting on. I don't think that it is right for every single person to have a vote when some people aren't politically informed, so what gives them the right to decide how everyone is mandated? And I know that's a difficult claim to make, but that's just my own opinion. I really don't understand how that is possible. We just have so many ignorance who decide to vote on these legal issues because of what the media says. And as we have seen, the things the media says, I literally think if I were to slam my head into a wall like the entire time that I'm typing something down and not even looking at the keyboard, I could probably come up with something that would be more valid than the things that they spout these days, because it is just, I wouldn't even wipe with what the news says these days. But that's pretty much all that I have about this one. Trump campaign wins case on Pennsylvania voter ID deadline. The Trump campaign on Thursday won a case attempting to disqualify a small number of mail-in ballots, for the first time. Pennsylvania voters who were unable to confirm their identification by November 9th, clearly beyond the deadline. These ballots had been segregated pending the judge's decision and have not yet been counted, so their disqualification will not affect the current vote in Pennsylvania. But I guarantee there are more cases like this. I know that there are. I can't confirm whether it'll affect the vote or not, but it would not even surprise me if these ballots that were separated had already been processed through and then just thrown into a separate pile. Joe Biden won the state and subsequently the election. He sure didn't. On Saturday, and currently leads President Trump by, still President Trump, we'll keep that one in there, by more than 53,000 votes. Commonwealth Court President Judge Mary Hanneth Leavitt ruled that Pennsylvania's Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar, she needs investigated, no joke, she does, lacked authority when she issued guidance to county boards of election to count mail ballots so long as voter IDs were confirmed by November 12th. Kind of seems like there are some stipulations that are sort of trickled down from the leading Democrats of what they think would win them the election. It's sort of odd that that's the way that things swing most of the time. I haven't heard of a single time a Republican doing something similar. Not one. You have so many cases of Democratic ones doing it. Not one Republican one. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one. I just figured it would be nice with all this voter fraud talk. We had to get in there, and I had to put my piece in, you know? So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.